While Jesus was still speaking, suddenly a crowd came, and the one called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said to him, "Judas, is it with a kiss that you are betraying the Son of Man?" When those who were around him saw what was coming, they asked, "Lord, should we strike with the sword?" Then one of them struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus said, "No more of this." And he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, the officers of the temple police, and the elders who had come with him, "Have you come out with swords and clubs, as though I were a rebel? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness." I am the sword that Peter swung that struck the slave of the high priest and removed his ear. Sword is a generous name to give me. Short sword would be more reasonable. Knife wouldn't be misleading. I'm no vaunted military blade. I've never been carried by a soldier. My place has been at a fisherman's side. If you want the head and the guts of a carp or a catfish removed, then I'm just the blade for the job. You'd no more run into battle with me than with the lid of a saucepan as a shield, and the saucepan itself on your head as a helmet. I was one of Peter's prized possessions. I'd rarely leave his side, kept snug in a leather scabbard. In the evenings he'd find a flat stone and hone my edge until I was razor sharp. After we had eaten supper in the upper room, the supper that was to be his last, Jesus spoke, saying, "When I sent you out without a purse, bag or sandals, did you lack anything?" And Peter and the others replied, "No, not a thing." And Jesus carried on, "But now the one who has a purse must take it, and likewise a bag, and the one who has no sword must sell his cloak and buy one." Peter pulled me out of the scabbard at his side, where as usual I was resting, and nudged his brother Andrew to do likewise. When Andrew had withdrawn his knife too, Peter said, "Lord, look, here are 2 swords." It was my starring moment. You know, Jesus normally spoke of peace and of loving our enemies and allowing those who struck us to strike us again. For once, I thought I was just what Jesus was asking for. It was well known that there were murmurings amongst some who followed him, that they'd had enough of this passive resistance, and they were ready for something altogether more military, more direct, more violent. In the response to the display of the 2 knives, all Jesus said was, "It is enough." No one contradicted him, but 2 small swords were quite clearly not enough if we wanted to do any real fighting. We left the upper room and went to the garden, and it was there later in the night that the soldiers came to arrest Jesus. They had proper swords. Gladiuses, they were called, a symbol of Roman might. Jesus' words still ringing in my master's ears, Peter drew me and leapt forward bravely and slashed me through the air. I felt the familiar bite into flesh, but not cold like the flesh of a fish, but so warm. The blood ran down me like usual and I thrilled. Peter's grip was tight and eager. The moment of confrontation had arrived. Now was the time to strike and maim. Jesus let out his war cry, "No more of this!" He healed the ear, mending that which I had separated. I have never felt more blunt than when he undid my work.